Hello, hello, and welcome. I am so excited to be here with you, and I am very grateful for you and for this platform that connects us to new opportunities. My name is Jana Masik. I'm the host of this LinkedIn Live broadcast, Powering Unique You. And today we are going to have a fantastic conversation. It's all about how to help you, how to provide you with new tools to pivot your career, to reinvent yourself. And I believe in these days where we are at right now, almost closing toward 2020, each one of us need to pivot, each one of us need to reinvent and almost rediscover ourselves, what we do, and how we can move forward to success. I'm so thrilled to have you here. If you're joining in, please say hello. Tell me where you're from. Tell me how your Monday is going. I hope you have a great winning attitude. Let's make this week matter. Let's make this week amazing. We could do it together. Now, my guest today is a very special woman. I could tell you she is an example of the person who pivoted many times and looked through ways to rediscover herself. She started as a programmer. Then she turned into business intelligence analyst. Then she turned again into operations leader. And then she pivoted into learning and development leader. Then into career transition coach, and then once again, become entrepreneur. Now, so many ways on how to rediscover yourself and how to pivot yourself. She's done it all. And while she was doing that and pivoting her career and discovering her strengths, she found that there is not a single assessment or there is not a single tool that can help you to discover your secret sauce, to discover what is this you're good at, what is this that you're really thriving and doing. So she created a unique profile called You Map. And what I love about this is that you are the one to take the ownership and to discover and map out your path. And it may not be linear. Sometimes we think it's linear, but it's almost always ups and downs or some type of tweaks. So this profile can help you uncover your strengths. It can help you discover your values, your preferred skills, and your personality to show unique contribution of each one person. I really love that. And I would say this amazing woman is also an author. She wrote numerous books. One of them is UMAP, is Amazon #1 bestseller, and as well as a children's book, You've Got Gifts. Hey, I cannot wait to introduce to you my phenomenal friend, Kristen Sherry. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Jana. Thank you so much for having me on your broadcast.
I am so thrilled to have you here today. And I believe that this conversation will add a lot of value to anybody tuning in today.
I sure hope so. It's always my goal that whenever I speak to people or with people, that they walk away feeling that they have more control and actual practical actions to take to make a difference in their life.
I love this. And we have people joining in. We have Lori saying hello, Jana and Kristen, listening from Charlotte, NC. We have Keith Widman saying hi, Jana, checking in from Columbus, Indiana. Hi, Keith. Good to see you live. Sandra, my friend, she's saying hi, Jana and Kristen. Welcome to a new week. Welcome. And we have even Pinky joining from Mumbai, India.
Wow.
Hi. Good to see you here. So you're joining in, say hello to us, ask questions. We would love to have this conversation as a collaboration. We are here to serve you, to provide value to you. Now, Kristen, maybe you could give us a little bit of glimpse of where this all started. And you are the master of pivoting.
Yeah, it's funny because I've pivoted my career probably there's even more pivots than you mentioned. So I've probably pivoted my career about 7 times. And I thought I was having a career identity crisis. Like, what's wrong with me that I can't find a career that I love? But I did come to find out at the time that I was a learner, and people with um, strong learning talents don't enjoy doing the same thing. They need growth, so they tend to do a lot of lateral movement. And that's what was going on with me. But also, I had some pretty significant values violations in my career, but I didn't know that's what was happening. So I thought that the solution was to do something different, do a different career. But because I didn't know what my values were, I kept ending up in the same boat again in the different career. But once I really figured out what I needed for career satisfaction, then I was not sort of shooting arrows in the dark.
I love this, Kristen, and I love what you're saying. It's hard to read the label from inside the jar, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to see sometimes and discover your strengths, your values. And you said you've struggled with this for years. I think anybody can resonate. If you resonate, give us some heart or some thumbs. Let us know if you resonate. If you have challenges throughout your career to figure this out, what is that exactly brings you joy, satisfaction, passion? You feel you're making impact. And this is what we're here to talk about. And we have 5 steps, and you've identified, Kristen, 5 important steps that can help anybody pivot, can help anybody rediscover themselves. And why don't we go dive right into that?
Sure. I'd love to share a quote quickly if I could. It's one
Yes,
of my
please.
favorite quotes by Amelia Earhart. She says, "The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. The fears are paper tigers. You can do anything you decide to do. You can act to change and control your life. And the procedure, the process is its own reward." I love that because it's such an empowering position, because a lot of times we leave our careers up to other people, waiting for someone to promote us, waiting for someone to give us an opportunity, instead of saying, hey, I can architect my own life. That's what I love about that. And the fears are paper tigers. It's 100% true. So as far as the 5 steps, just at a high level, there are more steps you can take, but I've sort of distilled it down to, if you focus on these 5 things, you'll be very likely to be able to transition your career. So the first thing is starting inside. Instead of looking around at what's out there and what might I like, you have to really start inside and pinpoint what your talents are, because you want to be using what you're naturally good at. What's important to you? If you just take a job but you don't feel like it's meaningful work, and meaningful work is one of your top values, or if you go into this role that you're going to be good at, but you sit alone behind a computer and community is your number 1 value, you're still going to be unsatisfied, even if you're good at the job, so to speak. And then how do you actually want to be spending your day? What are the transferable skills that you have that can transfer to job? 85% the business world, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. And then what are you actually interested in doing based on your personality? So if you start with those 4 things, that's going to give you some really good clues on where you're going to be most satisfied. And I can give you some tips on how to do that as well.
Yeah, so I would like to just say 4 pillars. So the number 1 step is 4 pillars to discover your career fit. And you said pinpoint your strengths, your values, preferred skills, and interests. So it's strength, values, skills, and interests to move you in the right directions. And what are the tips that you give to our listeners and viewers on this particular step?
Well, I think the best thing to do is do some assessment work, but you can also, if that's not an option for you, let's say you've been unemployed a long time and resources are tight, you can start talking to people who've worked with you and have that external lens, because you said earlier, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. We're not objective about ourselves, and we tend to downplay the things that we're good at and devalue the things that we're really good at.
Yes.
So you can send an email to 5 to 10 people who've worked with you, who know you personally. Different contexts is great because you'll get different angles and different perspectives. And simply say, can you think of a time and tell me a little story of a time that I used a talent or did something I'm very good at? And can you share the impact that had? And when you get those 10 stories back from people, you're going to start to see themes or patterns of what you do over and over. And people might say different things, but you're going to see some common themes come up. And rather than sort of batting that down and saying, oh, everyone can do that, that's really not true. There are lots of things that I marvel that people can do. Like they can walk into a room and turn 10 individuals into a community where everyone is talking. I don't know how to do that. So you can't downplay the ability to turn groups or individuals into a community. So then after you've done this, I call that like your best self exercise. Like tell me
Yes.
about me when I'm at my best self. And
Yeah.
after you've done that and you start to think about these themes, then you can start to ask yourself questions of what are experiences that I've had doing some of these things. And that actually leads into step 2 of what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to the strengths, finding out your values, you can sit down and think about what are times that I was the most fulfilled in my life. And it can be both personal and professional. When was I really feeling fulfilled, happy, satisfied? And start writing out stories of things that made you fulfilled. So it could be, oh, that time that I met this woman in the park and she was really down and I was able to encourage her and da 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 da, whatever happened. And then start to ask yourself, why was that important to you? Why did that matter? And you can start to dig down. And maybe it was because I was able to make someone feel included. So I
Mm-hmm.
value inclusiveness. Or maybe it was that I made a difference in someone's life. So I know that to be fulfilled, I need to feel like I'm making a difference. Or maybe I had an experience where I learned something new and it was so exciting to master a new skill. Maybe I value knowledge or growth, or maybe I valued getting that award because I value accomplishment. So you have to
Yes.
really think about what it is you value, because what happens is people will say things like, I value my family.
Mm-hmm.
That's not helpful, because what is it about your family that you value? Do you
Yes.
value the security that you feel a family provides? Do you value the love and the connection? Do you
Connection.
value usefulness? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
feel useful when I'm
Yes.
serving people I love. So you have to really think about what it is you value, and then know that those things can transfer to other areas of your life. If you value belonging, you're not going to do well working in a job where it's competitive and everyone's out for themselves and works in silos. So
Yes.
it doesn't matter if you find a role that fits your skills and strengths. If your values are violated, it's just really going to be a deal breaker.
That's so true. That's so true. This is very, very important, Kristen. What you mentioned is that nobody can tell you that, and I feel sometimes you may think, well, it's a lot of work to do that, right? And you may think, oh, maybe somebody can tell me, but nobody can guide you on that path. You really have to, just what you said, Kristen, sit down and look at within and discover those strengths, those values, the things that truly bring you fulfillment. And they will be different for each one of us, because each one of us are unique. We have different drivers, we have different passions, different skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And our values are going to be core. What you said, the role may be okay, but if our values are violated, we're going to be dissatisfied in the role. And I can perform well in the role and I can, excel in the role, yet internally within, I am going to have dissatisfaction. And that's the important part, to align those values with what you do. So
Mm-hmm.
then when you build this career based on your values, then you come in and you're really passionate about what you do. You're enthusiastic, you're fully in, and that's going to be great for you and for anybody around you, because they're going to be inspired with what you do, with what
Yeah.
you create, right?
As far as the skills, too, I would say to people, think about the difference between a good day and a bad day at work. What were you actually doing? So you can think about, what are the best days at work that I've had, and what are the skills I was using? Was I negotiating? Was I selling? Was I writing? Was I strategizing? Was I mentoring? Was I training? A lot of times people will have a job and think they just happen to have good days and bad days. And you can have a bad day because people are there, and someone might give you a bad day. But in terms of the responsibilities of your role, you're going to enjoy some days better than others, but people just tend to say, oh, today was a bad day. Well, how were you spending your time? What were you actually doing in that day? And that's going to give you a lot of insight into the things that you don't like to do.
And that's step number 2. Step number
Number
2,
two.
write your ideal day. So maybe you could expand a little bit more, Kristen, on that.
Yeah, I love the ideal day exercise because it's so practical, and what it does is okay, so let's just say someone says to you, okay, what would you love to pivot into? Well, I'd love to be a project manager, you say, and you were an aerobics instructor. Well, and I'm not saying you can't pivot from an aerobics instructor to a project manager. With the work, you can pivot to almost anything. But what's really most successful in making a career pivot is, what are the skills that I already have experience using that are transferable into another context that I never thought about? Mm-hmm. And the way to do that is going through every job you've ever had. It doesn't matter if it's an internship, volunteer work, paid work. Go through everything you've ever done and write a list, bullet out the things you liked. So I loved meeting new customers. I loved solving problems. I loved when people would call me in to brainstorm. I loved mapping out steps of a project. I loved having meetings with people where we would determine who was going to do what. Like, what did you like doing? And even if you hated the job, if there was one thing you liked in it, don't just say, oh, I hated that job, so I'm not going to think about that job. Unless it's traumatic to think about the job, don't skip it. Because if there's even one thing, it's valuable information to have that transferable skill captured. So what you've effectively done after you've listed all the things you've ever enjoyed is you've created a job description where you have actual experience. And so now you know what your ideal day looks like. And you can add to it. If there are things you want to do that you haven't done, you can add to it and look for other ways to gain that experience, whether it's stretch projects in your current job if you're employed, whether it's taking the myriad free classes that are available online. A lot of universities are offering classes for free to people. And I know LinkedIn Learning was offering some free reskilling because of COVID. So yes. Now is a great time to reskill because there's a lot of opportunities out there. So once you've created this ideal day list, and you really want to be honest with yourself and not list things that you were good at but you didn't like, because then you're just getting into burnout territory.
Yes.
You were a superstar at it, but at what cost? You felt exhausted at the end of every day. So once you've got this list, you can start to do some very interesting things with it. You can share it with other people and say, when you read this little job description, what types of roles come to mind? You can go on job boards and take 3 or 4 keywords from your ideal day. So for example, customer relationship management, negotiation, selling, and presentations. What comes up? There's some really interesting roles that come up doing the skills you enjoy that you've never thought of. Mm-hmm. I had a client one time who did that exercise, and she was good at strategy, innovation, and analysis. And she was in business development. She was a salesperson, essentially. And she found a role for a strategic innovation analyst. Who even knew that was such a thing?
Oh, my.
And she's in that job now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she was able to demonstrate that was a good fit for her through her stories, because she had stories of strategy and stories of innovation. And that's what's so beautiful about the exercise. It's practical, but it's also very illuminating. And then what are people saying to you about the types of roles that come to mind? And what are things that you're finding on the internet doing research? And then all you have to do at that point is figure out which of those career options are going to be the most desirable to you.
That's fantastic. I love those tips. I love that it's practical application, Kristen. Everything that you give, it's not a fluff that you just think about. It's sit down, do your work. Just like you said in the beginning, sit down, do your work, figure it out, take an action. Mm-hmm. And we have a couple more people joining in and saying comments. Victoria, good morning. She's saying good morning, Jean and Kristen. So good to see you, Victoria. Victoria is in transition as well. So this is good. Ibrahim saying hello. good to have you, Ibrahim. Sandra is saying, yes, it's important to understand the distinction of what I am good at versus to fulfills me, where I blossom. And also I found value in looking for trends and feedback, since it showed more value in traits or skills that I didn't realize are big or distinctive. Yeah, this is a
I
very...
love that tip that Sandra gave. Oh, hi, Patty.
Patty saying good morning sounds so familiar as I'm going through your map process. Patty, this is fantastic. So
But
yes.
to Sandra's point, you should always keep your performance reviews. So when you get a performance review, save those to your personal computer, because if for some reason you depart the organization and you don't have access to them anymore, you won't remember what was said about you. So keep every performance review, and those are really valuable, not only for exploration and pivoting, but for providing valuable answers in an interview. When someone says to you in an interview, what are 3 words that people would use to describe you? Think about what they want in that role. Look through your performance, and you know what they want in the role by the job description, of course. And then, so for example, if they say they're looking for empathetic people, go through your performance reviews. Are there any comments or any examples, or did you get any kudos from customers where you demonstrated empathy? And then you can say, rather than saying, oh, well, I have empathy, that's what people do. Like, what's 3 words to describe you? And they say 3 words. It is so much more powerful to say, in my last performance review, my manager told me that I was very high in empathy to our customers, for example, and tell a very brief story. That's so much more powerful than just saying, oh, I have empathy.
I agree, Kristen, that the stories can draw and connect. So when we, shape and convey our best skills and best capabilities in stories, that is so relatable, right? It's not just something that I've made up. It's a real story, and that people can resonate and relate to it. I say, wow, I'm really impressed. I absolutely agree with you. Let's dive into number 3. List deal makers and deal breakers. How about that?
So when we're in a position of wanting to career pivot, we often tend to wait until it becomes a bad situation, because people inherently don't tend to like change. Some people do, but most of us don't. And so we plan to pivot when things are untenable at work, or we've lost our job, or we're having health problems from the stress. That is really not a good time to be making big life decisions. But if that's where you are, it is what it is. But the deal makers and the deal breakers are really important. These are the things that you absolutely must have in your next career move, and the things that you must not have. And I don't think that people tend to think about that. They look at the job description and they see, how well do I match? Well, I've got about 9 out of the 10 things, or 6 out of the 10 things, but what are my non-negotiables? So the deal makers could be things like, I am not going to be in a job where I have to travel.
Yes.
Or I do not want to commute more than an hour. I am not going to take a job where I have to work more than 45 hours a week. I am not taking a role where my manager does not show me respect, does not invest in me, whatever it is. And those deal makers are things that I was talking about deal breakers there, but deal makers are things you have to have. So I want a role where there's going to be growth opportunity, and I can be in that role for a year or 2 or 3, and then have an opportunity to do more.
Yes.
Or I need to have a role where I can see a clear development path. So there's professional development and professional growth, whatever that is. I mean, every person's going to have a different list. So that helps keep you honest with yourself, your deal makers and your deal breakers, because we can have this intuition, like red flags about a job, and take it anyway. Well, I need a job. I don't know if I'm going to get another offer. And I can't think of a person who's ever said, I wish I hadn't trusted my gut on that.
That's so true. That's so true.
So the deal makers and the deal breakers, you're kind of creating those when you don't have a decision in front of your face. And then you can hold an opportunity up to it and say, How well are we doing? Now, you can compromise. So let's just say you have a whole list of criteria of things that you want, and maybe there's this one small thing where you have to travel 20%, and you might say, well, that's not that much. So it's only going to be once a quarter, for example. So I'm willing to compromise there.
Yes.
But the idea is not to take decisions out of fear. I'm going to take, because honestly, I'll tell you, I meet people who are miserable because they're unemployed, but I meet people who are even more miserable who are employed. A
Who
lot of
are
times,
employed in jobs. I
yes,
agree with you.
you get this perception like, well, I have some red flags, but I really need a job, so I'm going to take it. That's stress and anxiety and all of the things that you have unemployed, you can easily have employed, and it can be even worse. It can be to
Yes.
the point where somebody is stealing your ideas, manipulating you, humiliating you in front of the team, like just this really terrible boss, to the point where you start to have your hair is falling out, like
Yes.
you're literally having physical health problems
Yes.
because of the abusive situation or the toxic culture you're in. So it helps us to really make better choices, those lists.
I love, Kristen, that you said never make decisions out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this is so important. And right now, with so many people out of jobs, and specifically if you find yourself that you're looking for a job, it's easy, like you said, Kristen, to just go dive into whatever comes my way. I do need to get a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe do contracting, maybe do some short-term work, to
Yeah,
get by
that's
financially,
fine.
until you find something that really make you fulfilled and excited, and you are looking to this work, and you're looking to this new career.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you make a decision out of fear, you're not thinking clearly. You're
Right.
trying to either escape something or you're trying to fight something, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to serve you well in the long run. So
I will
I
add, as just as a
yes,
caveat, that I understand that people might have to take a bridge job. A bridge
yes,
job is a temporary stopgap to have a paycheck while you're looking for your next career move. So I have a friend who took a job at Starbucks, and she was a barista at Starbucks for a number of months while she continued to look. But the key is, if you take a bridge job, you need to keep pursuing your career path and your career plan. You can't just park there forever and say, well, I guess I'm going to be, there's nothing wrong with being a barista. She loved it, actually.
yes,
But I mean, if that's not maximizing your potential,
yes.
then you can't just park and camp there and give up.
Parking camp for life. That's so true.
Yeah.
I love this. So bridge jobs are good. Just don't park there for life. Keep connecting, keep expanding your opportunities, growing, looking for things that and it's going to come. And in my experience, it doesn't come overnight. In my
Right.
experience, when you get clear on what you want, then it's almost like the universe works in your favor, because
Mm-hmm.
are in this clutter and you're not really sure what is that you want. Nobody can really understand what exactly you want, how I can help you, right? But when
Yeah.
you get clear on what we're talking about, is gaining that internal clarity
Mm-hmm.
on what is that you want, what are you good at, what gonna help you make you feel fulfilled, how
Mm-hmm.
can you make an impact in your life and in others' life. When you gain clarity on that, it doesn't happen overnight, but then you meet somebody, then another opportunity, then some other person can connect you, and things come your way toward
Mm-hmm.
what is that you desire. So that internal clarity is so important. And those the 5 actionable steps that we are giving you today, Kristen, that you're giving us today, are so practical and so important to gain that clarity when you want to pivot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Pinky is saying here, you would like to request to share this recorded version of these fantastic ideas and discussion on LinkedIn. We will have this recorded. It will stay on my page. And you can also find it on Jana Masik on YouTube. You can watch it there, Pinky. So you will have that to watch it again. Kristen, this is so phenomenal. If you're listening and tuning in and find this episode valuable, please share it on with your community. Share maybe 1 or 2 or 3 tips that stood out to you the most, that help you the most. Spread out this wisdom that Kristen is sharing with us, because I believe it is very valuable, can help anyone, each one of us. I'm learning so much today. Kristen, I love you coming in and sharing it. How
I'll just
about,
share a brief story before we go to the next
yes,
question. I hear
please.
a lot of people say that I can't pivot. It's not possible. I've only ever done this. I've only worked in this one industry or in this one job. When I pivoted from operations management to, I had never done any of the jobs I pivoted into, first of all. When I went into operations, I had no operations experience. When I went into reporting, I had no reporting experience. When I went to L&D, I had no formal learning and development experience. But here's what I did have. I did activities in my job that weren't technically in my job description. So when I went to get the learning and development manager role, I had done training with my team. I had done workshops. I decided to create a formal onboarding program. I decided to do those things because I knew where I wanted to go eventually. So looking for opportunities to give yourself experience, even if other people aren't making it part of your job description, is a really wonderful way to be able to bridge that gap. But I was interviewing for that position and they ended up giving me the job, even though someone had 15 years of experience running learning and development organizations. I had none other than transferable skills. But what I did have was the really positive can-do attitude in the interview, and also stories, really strong stories of how I made a difference using my transferable skills. So to your point earlier, the stories are really important. You can have someone come in with 15 years of experience, but if they don't have that connection with you, that desire and passion for the role, not over the top acting like swinging from the chandeliers, but just this engaged interest and interesting high impact stories, I was able to get the offer over someone who was far more qualified than I was.
I love this story that you shared, Kristen, because I feel the attitude and the desire to do the job and being excited, not too much, of course, like you
Yeah.
said, but still showing that you're ready to embark, and that is something that's gonna, make a difference in your life and in the life of those that you work with. Can stand out so much higher over the years of experience of someone. And I've seen that firsthand because I've done recruiting globally for 4 years, and I've seen the candidates that had years of experience, and actually that we did hire a person that had years of experience, knew all of the technology, knew everything. And when we hired him, it was a big mistake because when he came to the job, he came like this, and he's like, okay, well, I'm here, I'm a diva, and I'm going to show you what you're going to be happy that I just stepped on the ground and I'm here.
So lucky.
And guess what? The whole team was just like, the manager was like, oh my goodness, what a disaster. What are we going to do now? Right. So that is a true story too, that you can have years of experience and everything, but your attitude can negate all of that. And even if you're hired, you're going to be in a way a disruption to the team, to the project. So watch out for your attitude. Be meek. Even if you have many years of experience, I found that being humble and being meek and having this learner attitude can always draw people to you, because then you can mentor, you can come from a position, I'm here to learn, I'm here to make an impact, and I can make a big difference.
Yep.
Let's dive into number 4, Kristen.
Okay, so number 4 is about, so you've looked at your options, you've cataloged what you're good at, what's important to you, your transferable skills, you've gotten feedback from other people, maybe you've even done some informational interviews to talk to folks about opportunities, and you have options on the table now. So maybe you say, okay, I was a wealth advisor, but now I'm thinking about becoming a financial analyst or a CPA or a tax accountant or something. I don't know. Just, you've got 3 options that you might be interested in pivoting into. Well, how do you choose? Sometimes people will go around in circles and tie themselves into knots with the pros and cons going through their head. So what I really recommend is just getting it on paper, writing the options. So you might say, okay, I'm thinking about project management, account management, or a customer experience role. So I list all three. And so what you want to do is you want to first look at, where are your gaps? Are there certifications that they're asking for that you don't have? Are there education requirements you don't have? Are there number of years of experience you don't have? Just get a sense of where your gaps are and list all of your gaps for each of the opportunities. Then, so for example, maybe when you need 10 years of experience and you have 3. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't apply without the years of experience. I say go for it anyway. But
I
then you
love
want
it.
to think about, how feasible is it for you to fill the gaps? Can I take a class? Is it really just rebranding myself in my resume? Like, I have all of this stuff. It's just my experience doesn't look like it in the way I'm branded. So maybe it's just investing in a rebrand of your LinkedIn profile and your resume. So what's the level of effort to close the gaps? And then you can just assess that as low, medium, or high. So you might say, I wanted to be a CPA, but I didn't realize in my research that you have to have 1,800 hours of experience working alongside a CPA. That's just not feasible. So you want to rank the feasibility, low, medium, or high. How feasible is it for me to close the gaps? And maybe you don't have any gaps. Maybe you have the experiences and you just really need to just position yourself a little differently. Then you need to rank, how desirable are these opportunities? So when you read about the jobs in the job descriptions, when you do research on online websites about the company where this position is, or any type of informational interviews, and you're talking to people in these roles, how delicious does that opportunity sound to you? Low, medium, or high? So now you have the feasibility of transitioning into the role after talking to people, not your own assumption. And then how desirable it is. So you want to pick the highest feasibility first, and then the next highest desirability. Because what happens is people are like, oh, I really want this, and they go after it, but they don't really do a feasibility assessment on where their gaps are, and they haven't closed the gaps, and then they're frustrated because they've made 100 applications or 350 applications to those roles, and they're not getting anywhere. Most of the time when you're not getting anywhere, when you apply and you apply and you apply, you haven't closed your gaps. Whether that's the way you've branded yourself, or whether it's taking classes you needed to, or whatever that is.
Yes, I love this. It is assess feasibility and desirability.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned something that is important, Christine, and I want to expand a little bit. Infomercial interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I think not too many people are thinking that right now the system is overloaded. You have 30, probably 40 millions of people that are out of jobs, and everyone and anyone apply for jobs online.
Yeah.
Everybody's sending their resumes left and right, left and right. Now, what will help you stand out is to start reaching out and building connections, creating opportunities to have those infomercial, those informal, informational interviews with potential colleagues, potential managers, or even potential managers of your manager, right? So when you start creating those type of connections, I think it will allow you to stand out above the noise, and then position yourself to build relationships and potentially discover what is that the company is looking in that role, and are you a best fit? Is it a best fit for you, and is this a best fit for the company? It's a win-win situation. So it takes a little bit more courage than just pushing the button and applying online, right? It takes a little bit more vulnerability, because you may hear no. You may approach somebody and say, maybe just have a conversation for a few minutes, and you will hear crickets or no. And that's okay. Keep reaching out, keep building connections, and keep finding people that are of interest to you, that think in alignment to what is that you want to do and create. And you will find there will be people that are willing. There are people that are willing
Especially if
to
you
give
have a
you
warm
advice.
introduction, a
Yeah.
warm introduction. So rather than reaching out cold to people, who knows that person that can, like, so for example, I recently connected to someone to Lila Smith. And I said to Lila, I think you would really enjoy talking to this young woman. Here's why. And she was really excited to talk to the person, because usually you're going to often hear a no if there's not if you just reach out cold and there's not an obvious reason why, because busy people are busy. And so
Yes.
it,
Everybody's busy.
yeah. So what happens is when I ask Lila if she would be willing to speak to this person, all the warm, fuzzy feelings that she has about me transfer to that other person because I think highly of them. So
Yes.
it's a really good strategy to ask somebody that you know to introduce you. And the other reason for the informational interview is not just networking. It's helping you understand, does this role actually do what I think it does?
Yes.
And keeping in mind that roles can be different in different organizations. But I wanted to be a neurologist. My undergraduate degree is in neurology. And I went and actually spoke with a neurologist. And after hearing the actual day, I thought, I don't even think I want to do this. And so I still use that degree in the world of professional development.
Yes.
What I learned about the brain is very relevant.
Yes.
I don't want to be doing like surgery. I don't want to be doing assessments for people with head injuries. That just doesn't
Yes.
interest me in practice. So,
Yes. And I feel, to your point, Kristen, it's so important for people that are going into school and even about to graduate, right? That type of pivot. You said, have this research, have these conversations, have these discussions, because what you're studying for may not be what you're really going to be excited or passionate. I think for young people, it's a little bit more complicated because they
yeah.
don't really know what they like, right?
Yeah, the classroom environment does not mirror the work environment. A perfect
Yes.
example of that is a pharmacist. So in the classroom environment, you're doing experiments in chemistry and mathematics, but then you're standing in the kiosk at CVS where this woman tells you about a rash she has on her thigh and she's not sure what she should do about it. And like, that's not what you did in school.
I love this. I love this. It's so true. So yes, do a lot of information gathering and a lot of research, and it will help you to make the choices. Right? Don't feel you have to make this harsh decision. You
Mhm.
have choices. So create the choices for yourself, and then pick the one that has more feasibility and more desirability, that matches for you, your skill set, and as well bring you what you want to achieve in your career. I love it, Kristen. We have a couple more comments here. Sandra is saying we limit ourselves by focusing on the job title
Mhm.
rather than the skill and passions that we did while we held a certain title. Now let go of the title, focus on the skills, stories, and passions that you enjoy, and you might realize that the different title isn't so much of a pivot as you think. I
Mhm.
love this, Sandra. I love how you put that together. Very true. And Victoria is saying, I've had a lot of what I call get to know me calls, and some with CEOs, senior executives, great connections made. This is fantastic, Victoria. Yes. I feel connections lead to collaborations and lead to opportunities, right? So the more we feel connected with people, the more we can help others to get connected with what they may like, or we can create opportunities for ourselves and others as well.
We should
Chris,
always pay it forward when we seek help from other people only when we need it, and then we don't continue to pay it forward. People eventually will be, oh, this person's a taker,
I
and I'm
love it.
going to pass on helping you this time.
I love it. Pay it forward. And as we close in, let's dive into number 5.
Yep.
Align with your target. Kristen, how about that?
So remember that best self exercise you did where people told you all these great stories about yourself? Or if you've read the book UMAP, you can go through all of these steps and get your stories as well. Now you're able to create a really great networking pitch. So maybe people said to you in your sales role that, you were really good at turning around underperforming territories. You could go into any territory that was struggling and turn it around. So in your networking pitch, you want to talk about what experiences you have from a strengths and skills standpoint, not job titles, to Sandra's point. What value are you going to bring? So what are you looking for? What are the strengths and experiences you have that connect to it? And what value can you bring? So you can say, I'm transitioning from A to B. I discovered that I was really good at A, B, and C. And so now I'm looking for a small to medium-sized financial organization where I can help improve operational efficiencies and save the company money. So those three things are what you want to really focus on: what you're looking for, the strengths and experiences you bring, and what is the value you're going to bring. You want to take that thread through everything. So if you turn around underperforming territories, you could put that as your LinkedIn headline. I turn around underperforming territories, and then put the up and down pipe there. And you could put regional sales management, healthcare, if you want to focus on the industry. So a couple of keywords to be found with that little result-oriented sentence is very powerful.
Yes.
And that's going to be consistent with all the feedback that you got in your performance reviews, in the best self feedback. Then your LinkedIn profile expands on that story. So when I say I turn around underperforming territories, I can go into my why. How do you do that? Like, why is that? Why are you passionate about that? And then how do you do it? It could be a story about how you built relationships, strong relationships with people, and that's how you turned it around. But what is your secret sauce for turning around underperforming sales territories? And then all of your stories are going to connect to your ideal day and the best self feedback of what you like. People are going to give you feedback of what you're great at that you don't like. So pick the things that you enjoyed and your ideal day. And what are all your stories? Write out 4 to 5 very brief stories, say them aloud to someone for feedback, because a written story is not going to be as deliverable in an interview as a spoken story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all those stories, those are your little mini billboards on your resume. When you write your career profile, you can say, I have 10 years of experience of doing A, B, C, and D. Those are the things you do best, whatever. So you want to make sure that there's this connectedness, this thread. So when I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile, when I'm hearing your networking pitch, when I'm reading your resume, when you're telling me stories, it's not like all over the place. It's this consistent message. And so it's reinforced at every step that I'm exposed to you, from the initial networking all the way to the time you're sitting in an interview across from me. I have this consistent story that you're telling across all of those channels in a little different way.
Yes, I believe this is important. And it starts like when we started the conversation with clarity, right? And you almost, this 5 steps, almost like building blocks. Yeah. You build a little house for yourself. You build your career. You build how to pivot your career. And, alignment with your self-discovery, with your gathering the information, and deciding what is that going to look like for you, then putting that alignment across and consistently across your resume, your posts, your social media, your LinkedIn profile. People's going to come and say, oh, I like what this person is doing. And it also creates this, I feel, likability, because then people have clarity about what you do. When you have clarity about who you are and where you're going, then you convey that in a way that people also say, I like that. And I'm really interested to learn, where is that you're going, and how can I maybe support you, and we can support each other. So then the conversations can start happening as well.
But when you hear about how frustrated people are trying to write their resume, trying to perform in an interview, or even write their LinkedIn profile, the reason it's such a frustrating experience is because they don't have the clarity, to your point. So it's like blindfolding yourself and spinning yourself around like you're getting ready to pin the tail on the donkey and say, all right, now write your resume, write your LinkedIn profile, and go perform in an interview. And you have no idea what your message is, no idea what you're looking for. And what that does is it creates an inconsistency in you as well. You're not telling consistent stories, and it's harder to be authentic because you're trying to morph to what you think they're looking for instead of being true to who you are, which presents this confidence And you might not be right for them, but if you're clear in your brand, they're going to think of you when they have something come up that does fit you.
Yes, I agree with you. So this is where the importance of self-discovery lies. This is where, if you're listening and tuning in, if nothing else, go check out the book You Map. Much more important, go to myumap.com website. Check what Kristen put together for you to be able to gain that self-discovery in addition to those 5 steps we covered today. And she also has phenomenal coaches that work using her tool of helping you exactly do the same, to self-discover, to learn what are you good at, to learn what your transferable skills are, and to create this profile for yourself that give you clarity about what you want, what you stand for, and what kind of career path can give you the this feeling of fulfillment, right? So check it out. This is going to be phenomenal for sure.
If anybody is looking for a coach, if you go to myumap.com, there's a find a coach link there. They don't work for me. They're independent consultants that are certified in UMAP. If you'd like to go through that process of discovery and walk with a coach, you can find a coach on that page that fits you.
I love this. And Kristen, maybe a couple more things as we close out, your maybe a few more tips for our listeners.
Sure. I would say that your LinkedIn profile, don't try to make it everything to everyone. Make sure that you have that clear headline of that one thing you do best with a couple of keywords so you can be found by recruiters. And then go inside and tell those stories or share those accomplishments that connect to that secret sauce of what you do best. And then at the bottom of your profile, add keywords. It could say key skills, skills I enjoy, experiences, whatever you want to call it at the bottom, and put a comma delimited list of those things in your ideal day, because your LinkedIn profile is searchable by recruiters. So those keywords will bring you up in searches, and people can see at the bottom of your profile exactly the things that you do. If the stories you tell weren't clear to them, they can see, oh, this is, project management, customer relationship management, whatever. So it's really important that you do target your LinkedIn profile to where you're trying to go, not to where you are right now.
Yes, this is so important. Thank you so much, Kristen, for coming in and sharing all this value and wisdom and these fantastic steps that anybody can take at any given time to better themselves, to gain more clarity, to gain more self-awareness, and ultimately find the career that's going to create the fulfillment, the joy, the enthusiasm, the empowerment for you and for those that work with you. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you tuning in and sharing with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And for your listeners, I believe that when we self-discover ourselves, when we take our career and we take our life back into our hands, take the ownership of what choices we make, then we can truly create something phenomenal. The sky is the limit. You do the work, you gain the clarity, put it out there and see what happens. Together, we can change the world to be a better place. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you again next time.